Moonlight washed the battlements of Storm's End in spectral silver, painting the ancient stones with ghostly luster, while the torches below guttered against a restless wind. A hush lay over the castle, the hush of a place trying to remember its old songs after too many seasons of war. In that hour, when night is deepest yet dawn still seems a fable, Melisandre of Ahai ascended the winding stairs of the drum tower, her scarlet silks rippling like living flame. Somewhere below, the sea boomed and sighed, but to her it was a voice, one of many, that promised the world would burn clean or drown. She paused at each landing to breathe a scent only she could smell. Smoke, salt, a bitter pinch of iron. Even here, on the thresholds of a keep that had resisted dragons once, the taste lingered, subtle as embers beneath ash. It told her she was close, closer than she had ever been, perhaps. The chamber she sought lay hidden in Storm's End's oldest heart, a forge converted into modest quarters for the king's bastard smith. No kings remained here now, yet prophecy clung to the fortress the way salt clung to skin. A guardsman dozed by the door, his head slumped, helm askew. Melisandre's passing was swift, noiseless, a red ribbon through shadow. She laid 2 fingers upon his brow. He murmured a half-formed protest that snuffed itself at birth. Dreams could go on deceiving him. She needed no witnesses tonight. Within, the forge room was dim, lit only by the dying coals of a hearth and the scattered orange eyes of molten nails cooling upon an anvil. The stink of wrought iron and quenched steel mingled with sweat. Amid it, asleep on a straw pallet, lay a young man whose shoulders were too broad for so narrow a bed. His bare chest rose and fell with slow certainty, each breath tracing chords of muscle etched by honest labor. A hammer rested beside his calloused hand, like an old loyal hound. He was no one's idea of a prince. The realm called him Gendry Waters, had he any surname at all. To Melisandre, though, light licked him lovingly. The ruby at her throat flared bright as dawnfire when she knelt at his side and watched the shifting shadows limn the planes of his face. Brown hair mussed, lips parted in slumber. The bastard seemed but a boy, yet inside him she felt the heartbeat of another. Not Renly's ghost, not Stannis' clenched fist of will, but something older, fiercer, kinder. A sword reforged in flesh. She had asked her flames again and again. They kept showing her a crown of blue flame upon a dark head, a smith's hammer risen against the cold. Sometimes a stag, sometimes a bull. Sigils blurred into smoke, but always the same eyes, deep pools of cobalt, reflecting nothing yet, promising everything. Stannis' eyes were flinty, Renly's had sparkled green. This youth's, she reached, brushed his brow. Lids fluttered open to reveal irises the color of a clear winter sky. They widened as he saw her, confusion warring with dawning wonder. "Milady." His voice cracked with sleep and surprise, heavy with the riverlands instead of the high-born drawl of courts. "What?" "Be still," she whispered. "You are safe, child of the forge." He pushed upright, the blanket sliding to his waist. Firelight painted his torso in bronze hues. "It's late. Did Lord Stannis send for me?" "Lord Stannis serves a greater lord, as do we all. You have been called Gendry of House Baratheon, blood of the storm. The hour is upon us." "Nan?" He blinked. "Baratheon? I'm no lord's son." Yet he did not move away when she reached for his hand. The ruby pulsed. Blood speaks even when tongues stay silent. There is a darkness fell upon this world, and only the warrior reborn shall banish it. I saw you amid the flames, saw Lightbringer in your grasp, the red star bleeding over Dragonstone, the cold things shattering before your hammer stroke. A laugh tried and failed to escape him. His knuckles whitened around the hammer's haft. "Your Mistress Melisandre, I'm a smith, nothing more. You are more than forged iron, more than the seed of a dead king." She rose in a single fluid motion, the scarlet hem kissing the floor. "Tell me, have you never felt heat inside your veins, as though the very steel you shape sings back to you?" Gendry glanced to his anvil. Memory flickered across his face. Sometimes the metal glows longer for me than it should. Thought it was trick of the bellows. No trick. She touched his chest. The ruby's light spread across his skin like dawn. The Lord of Light has rekindled the forge of your heart. Azor Ahai returned, promised by ancient song. Walk with me. He hesitated, yet something in the tower air shifted, a hush within the hush. The coals behind them flared bright, then smothered into sparks. Gendry, eyes reflecting their dying light, swung his legs to the ground and stood barefoot before her. A smith's leather trousers were all he wore. She handed him a linen tunic, white as bone, embroidered with a rising sun in gold thread, vestments prepared for Stannis once, altered hurriedly now by trembling Septus. He pulled it over his head, the garment hanging loose yet noble upon his shoulders, as if it had awaited him alone. They moved together through corridors that seemed older than time. Torches did not sputter when Melisandre passed. They leaned toward her, feeding on the air she left behind. Gendry's breaths echoed among stone arches, equal parts trepidation and awe. He smelled sea salt, candle wax, something floral, myrish oils, clinging to her red hair like invisible smoke. At the base of the Sea Dragon Tower, they emerged under naked sky. Storm's End's Godswood had little life left. The storms had stripped its oaks and sentinels to twisted silhouettes, but the heart tree still stood. A pale, leafless giant, its bleeding face etched deep. Before it, rows of soldiers in black and gold knelt, helms removed, their heads bowed to the dark grass. Torches painted wavering halos around each man. And there, in front of them all, a ring of glass candles burned blue and green and violet, flames dancing without breeze. At the circle's center waited Stannis Baratheon, crownless, draped in rough wool, his jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the youth approaching. The tableau was an anvil upon which destinies might shatter or be forged anew. Gendry halted a pace from the king who would not yield. Silence rang. A gull cried overhead, shrill as doubt. Then Melisandre's voice rose, not loud, yet carrying a weight to still hearts. Look upon the Forgeborn, your grace. The fires have spoken his name. He is the warrior reborn, the prince that was promised. Stannis' mouth twisted, part scorn, part resignation. You told me that title once. Told me I must carry the burden. Now you shift it to a bastard? Danum. The fires revealed clearer vision, she said. I followed the wrong shadow. You are a man of flint, Stannis, needed to strike the spark. But only the steel tempered in humility can wield Lightbringer. Gendry's head swam. Soldiers stared. Some with hope, some with dread, some with contempt. Stannis measured him like an iron bar whose impurities could yet betray. He bears my brother's face, the king said softly. Has Renly returned, wearing a blacksmith's soot instead of green silk? No ghost, Melisandre answered. Only promise. One that cost me men, faith, a blade. Stannis' lips thinned. If he is what you claim, let the god prove it. He drew a longsword from scabbard. It was not Lightbringer. Its steel shone ordinary. Stannis thrust it into a brazier of smoking coals near the heart tree roots. Orange tongues licked a blade. Take it, boy. Gendry moved. Heat swelled. Sparks kissed his tunic, yet he reached into the brazier, seized the sword's hilt barehanded. Flesh should have blistered, but the steel cooled beneath his fingers. When he raised the weapon, the flame bled from the metal into radiant gold that danced along the edge. Gasps rippled through the semicircle of kneeling men. Even Stannis flinched. Gold became white. White flared to crimson, until the blade seemed a shard of living sunrise. Atop the brazier's rim, no fuel remained, only ash. Melisandre's smile was serene. The sword accepts him. She stepped behind Gendry, draped a red velvet mantle over his shoulders, its collar sewn with rubies that mirrored her own gem. Firelight refracted, dashing kaleidoscopes across the yard. Kneel, Azor Ahai. Gendry sank to one knee. The gleaming sword laid across upturned palms. His eyes, wide as the horizon, found Stannis. My lord, I never asked for. Stannis held him with gaze of iron winter. "Prophecy makes fools of kings," he said. "Yet kings are needed, fool or not." He raised a hand. Davos Seaworth appeared, stepped forward bearing a circlet forged that evening. Storm steel crowned with stag antlers wrought of beaten silver. The Onion Knight's face was troubled, yet he performed his duty, offering crown to Stannis, who surprised all by turning to Melisandre. "Do it," the king said curtly. Red Priestess outstretched slender hands. Darkness coiled under her eyes, but also rapture. She held the circlet over Gendry's bowed head. "Be crowned not by mortal right, but by flame and song. Rise as Gendry, named of no house, and stand as Azor Ahai, Lord of Light's champion, King of the Dawn." Metal met curls. The crown settled. Wind gusted off the sea, extinguishing every torch, but leaving the glass candles blazing. Their rainbow light shimmered on Gendry's cheeks like tears. He rose, and where his feet trod, frost melted on grass. Before first light, ravens flew to every corner of the realm. Their messages bore a seal new to courtiers and common folk alike, a hammer crowned by flame. Upon a field half black, half gold, some maesters scoffed at the sigil of Anoname. Others remembered tales of heroes who were bastards until the world rebirthed them. At Dragonstone, the stone gargoyles leered down on quarreling lords. Salator San laughed uproariously when Davos delivered the news. "A Smith King," the Mirish captain wheezed. "I'll sail seas of molten silver for a look at this." Yet coins glittered in his eyes. Sell sails loved bold stories more than safe bets. In the north, Jon Snow watched white ravens depart the rookery, and wondered if Winter's War might find a stranger stormbringer than Stannis. At King's Landing, Cersei Lannister's hand tightened around a goblet, wine sloshing scarlet onto her wrist. Another Baratheon? She raged. Would bastards sprout from cracks in the stones until they surrounded her like wolves? But in the Riverlands, where blackened fields still wept from war, a small folk mother read the parchment aloud to gather children. "The light shall dawn anew, ushered by the hammer of the humble." They did not know what Azor Ahai meant, yet they cheered, for the words sounded like hope. Gendry found little hope in himself. Dawn's first rays found him atop Storm's End's parapet, the weight of the unseen world pressing like a smith's anvil between shoulder blades. Below, courtyard banners unfurled to reveal his fresh sigil, hastily stitched overnight. Soldiers drilled while priests in red intoned strange hymns. All for him, the bastard. Footsteps approached. Melisandre, as ever, soundless on stone. "You did not sleep." "How could I?" He stared eastward. Cloud banks glowed rose, but thunderheads lurked. "I still smell forge smoke on my hands, yet they call me king. I've never led men. I know steel, not oaths." "You know the feel of true heat," she said, laying palm on his arm. "That is leadership, guiding metal to its shape without letting it shatter. The realm is the same. And if I shatter, the Lord of Light tempers those he chooses." He turned, gaze hardening like quenched steel. "You chose me." Her red hair stirred. "I saw you in the flames, my king, not as one might wish but as truth." She cupped his cheek, thumb brushing stubble. "Doubt is natural, even fire flickers, but it never forgets its nature." Words failed him. She slipped away, crimson folds sweeping down the stair. Left alone with gulls screaming overhead, Gendry clenched the parapet and thought of the first sword he had forged. Crooked, brittle scrap iron pretended to be steel. He had melted it down, tried again. Second blade was truer. Third better. By the 10th, he had earned payment. How many tries would a king get? Lor's clergy descended upon Storm's End in caravans red as open wounds. They brought relics, bleeding candles, fragments of burned scrolls, braziers shaped like dragons devouring ice. They sang of Nissa Nissa and the forging of Lightbringer, of the long night, of a hero who thrust sword into living heart. Crowds gathered, muttering. Some bowed, others spat. Gendry listened to every sermon, jaw tight. The story repeated. Azor Ahai forged the blade 3 times. On the third, he plunged it into his wife's breast. Her soul fused with steel, birthing Lightbringer. Then darkness fled. As priests chanted, Gendry's hand closed on empty air where his hammer should be. Melisandre saw. "You fear the price." "I don't even have a wife," he muttered. "Prophecy is symbol," she soothed. "Not ledger. A heart's blood may not mean a lover's death. It could be sacrifice of self, or power, or innocence. That comforts little. It should ignite resolve. For if you balk, all else perishes." That night, he stood before his anvil, alone, save for the sword Stannis had tempted the flame with. Its glow had faded to dull steel. Any other man would think it ordinary. He laid it in the coals, pumped bellows until the forge roared. Sparks burst like unborn stars. Sweat ran rivers while he hammered, folded, tempered. No blueprint guided him, only the pulse of something ancient. Each clang rang sweeter than last, notes of choir unseen. At dawn, Melisandre returned. The blade lay cooling, veins of red still glimmering within. Gendry slumped, exhausted. She lifted the weapon, and the ruby at her throat exploded with light. "You have begun," she whispered. Word of the Smith King's forging spread. Warriors from shattered houses, hedge knights disillusioned by lords' petty feuds, free folk who had followed Mance Rayder south, even a few disaffected knights' watch brothers, drawn by rumor, drifted toward Storm's End like sparks to tinder. They expected banners, coin, glory. Many found instead a man who met them in the yard, hammer and belt, asking them to help mend walls before the next storm. Gendry shared no grand speeches. He passed them buckets of lime, lifted stones with them, laughed when mud spatters hit his crown. Some left, angered by the lack of ceremony. Others stayed, bemused, infected by a humility wider than fear. Among those who stayed was Brienne of Tarth. She rode through rain one twilight, blue cloak sodden, oathkeeper at her hip. Gendry recognized her, had once rowed her across Blackwater Bay. She bowed deep, fist to breast. "Sir Jaime bid me guard Lady Sansa, yet war scattered us. I have heard your purpose aligns with hers, to bring dawn after night. If you will have me, I would wield my sword in your name." Gendry clasped her forearm. "I remember your strength. You are welcome, but I am still learning what my name means." "Nah, then learn while standing," Brienne said, smiling shyly. Steel mellows in use. In the courtyard, they sparred at dawn. Hammer against Valyrian blade. Sparks flew beneath a sky styled in pink and frost blue. She dented his helm. He laughed through the rung toll of metal. Watching from the gallery, Melisandre's red eyes deepened as though glimpsing rivers of fate converging. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, the Iron Throne dug deeper into Queen Cersei's spine. Her counsels shrank. Men she had promised gold now whispered of the Smith King. Qyburn, pale and chill as patient stone, urged caution. "This boy may be symbol only. Strike a symbol quickly, it shatters." Thus, gold cloaks hanged 3 Baratheon bastards found in Flea Bottom. Their blood dripped down rickety scaffolds into straw, while smell of piss and fear wafted across narrow alleys. "For the Queen," cried their killers. To small folk, it sounded less a proclamation, more dirge of coming doom. Storm's End thrummed like a forge in full roar by spring's first day. Gendry's hammer rang sunrise to moonset. The sword, Lightbringer, some dared name it, gleamed hotter with each fold. Yet Melisandre remained restless. In her chambers, candles burned blue-white, long shadows clawing. She stared into flames, searching for a face she dreaded. Half mask of snow and death. She saw instead a stag crowned in flame, pursued by a lion with bleeding paws. Overhead soared a direwolf made of night sky, but its eyes were ice. She told Gendry only fragments. Darkness stirs in every quarter. Winter marches from the north, would swallow all. You must finish the forging before it breaks our gates. Nah. How long? He asked, breath fogging. Long enough to temper a soul, she murmured. short as a heartbeat if we falter. So he forged on, until one eve, sparks danced crimson and white, coiling up his arms into chest, burrowing under skin. He dropped the hammer. The sword shone blinding for heartbeat, then dulled. A silence heavier than anvils filled the room. Melisandre stepped forward. It needs a name. Blades answer names. Nay, I have one in mind. He remembered Hot Pie once saying swords should have names like Oathkeeper. He smiled. Kingslayer's Bane. She frowned. No, names bind power. Choose carefully. He ran thumb along edge. It sliced a sliver of callus. Blood beaded, sizzling when it met steel. The blade drank it. Within folds, color flared. First rose, then deeper, as though the metal swallowed sunset itself. Stormbringer, he whispered. Melisandre's breath caught. The ruby throbbed. Outside, thunder cracked though skies were clear. She nodded slowly. The sword accepts. The coronation, formal, public, took place a fortnight later on the cliff above Shipbreaker Bay. 1,000 souls gathered. House banners tattered yet proud. Free riders, fishermen, barge captains, repentant lords. The wind carried salt and prophecy. Gendry wore a cuirass of hammered black steel he had shaped himself, inlaid with gold lightning. Brienne and Davos flanked him. Melisandre faced the crowd atop a platform of wrought iron. No septon officiated. She raised hands, and silent watchers felt warmth ripple through marrow. Night lies poised to fall, she cried, voice clear as glass chime. Yet flame answers. Here stands Gendry of the Dawn, first of his name, Hammer of the Storm, rightful son of Robert, bearer of Stormbringer. She produced the blade. When it kissed the sunlight, flares leapt across helms like new dawn. Do you accept this burden? She asked him. Gendry looked upon the faces below. Rough, scarred, hopeful. He remembered his mother's tears on a gutter cot. Remembered the day Tabomat bought him from that life. Remembered rowing away from the Red Keep with hot fear in his throat. He saw those memories as links in a chain that ended here. He took the sword. I am only a man, he called. But every dawn begins with one spark. If you will strike the steel beside me, together we forge a world that winter cannot swallow. A roar answered, hammers beating shields, fishermen clattering oars, children banging pots. Davos unsheathed a short blade and tapped it to Gendry's crown. Rise, your grace, he said, voice husky. Gendry rose. The wind gusted, cloth banners snapped like thunder. From the horizon, a shaft of sunlight broke gray clouds, painting sword and crown in radiance. It might have been coincidence, or omen. That night, Melisandre sought Gendry in the empty forge. Sparks danced again, but gentler now, as if in reverence. She placed a hand on his chest. Beneath, his heart hammered with forge rhythm. The curtain draws open, my king, she murmured. War will come before the blade cools. He met her red eyes. Let it come. Steel sings loudest when struck. She smiled, a soft curve rarely seen. Remember, fire alone cannot triumph. Even flame needs wood. She stepped back, lifting a clay viper from table. This is the blood of your blood. She cracked it open. Inside lay a leech bloated black-red. It writhed. Name a foe. He hesitated, then forced steel into tongue. Cersei Lannister. Melisandre dropped the leech into brazier. Flame hissed emerald, then snapped to crimson. Name another. Night King, he said, though he knew not if such creature truly walked. Leech, fire, hiss. Name your fear's heart. He saw not Stannis, not queens, but himself, bending knee to fate, failing. Failure. She met his eyes, for heartbeat, priestess and king both vulnerably human. She dropped the last leech. When smoke cleared, embers shaped 3 symbols. Lion, icy crown, broken hammer. Each crumbled to ash. Fear dies here, she said. But ash swirled up the chimney, borne on winds toward wide world. Somewhere far north, a horn of ice sounded once, twice, thrice, and dead things stirred. Snow began falling at Storm's End earlier than any maester recalled. At first flake, children laughed. By third day, defenders wrapped mantles thicker, cursed. Supply wagons slowed on muddy roads. Gendry, cloak dusted white, oversaw forging of spades, axes, tireless. Brienne drilled recruits in shield wall tactics, learned at Cracklaw Point. Davos counseled alliances. We cannot face winter alone. The North fights its own wars. Send ravens, offer steel, not crowns. Thus messages flew northward, westward, to Winterfell, to the Eyrie, to River Run. Each bore the hammer crowned by flame. Only one raven returned swiftly, from Winterfell. Jon Snow's simple words, we ride south. Hold fast. As weeks folded into frost-bitten months, rumors reached Queen's ears. Jon Snow marching with wildling archers, knights of the Vale wheeling behind. Even Greyjoy sails prowling coasts ready to harry golden lions. Cersei dispatched Euron's fleet to intercept, but Storm scattered it. She drank more red wine, glimpsing fires across Blackwater that looked like forges of prophecy. Yet prophecy rarely chose convenience. In the neck, Jon's forces bogged down amid flooded causeways. Supplies ran thin, men muttered. From the east, the Brotherhood without banners arrived, fire priests bearing word. The Smith King needs you. Thoros gone, Beric fallen, but their legend lingered. Men whispered a new flaming sword had risen. Many broke from Jon's host to follow the rumor south. Certain flame beats snow. Hope splinters as easily as oak. Bandit raids cut supply lines to Storm's End. One dawn Gendry returned from patrol, cheeks raw, to find a courtyard full of corpses, 15 small folk slain by unknown riders. The Smith King knelt beside a girl no older than he once was when first he hammered iron. Her fingers were frozen around a doll. Grief hit him like molten slag. He rose, Stormbringer blazing, and vowed aloud, no child will bleed for my crown again. Brienne and Davos traded looks. They recognized the forging of kingly steel more than any coronation. The forging of Light's army began in earnest. Gendry opened Storm's End's arsenals, turned forges to plowshares by day, swords by night. Every man trained, every woman learned spear or bow. Children carried arrows. R'hllor's priests blessed each blade, but Gendry insisted cold iron must serve beside. Blessed. A sharp edge feeds no prophecies, he said, but it keeps foes from our walls. Melisandre watched, both proud and anxious. Her visions grew fragmented, glimpses of pale spiders swarming battlements, lions drowning in wildfire, a hammer striking a crown of ice, shattering or forging it anew, the flames clouded. One eve she confessed to Gendry, voice trembling, I fear the visions twist around us. The closer dawn comes, the darker shadows grow. Victory is not foregone. He laid a soot-streaked hand on her wrist. I don't ask for certainty, only that you stand beside me. Nan? Her lips parted, as though to ask something deeper, but horn blasts erupted from ramparts. Sails sighted on the horizon, gilded with Lannister crimson. On cliffs overlooking Shipbreaker Bay, Gendry, Brienne, Davos and Melisandre peered through spyglass. An armada of lion banners advanced, led by Black-prowed flagship, with gleaming golden maiden upon its bow. Cersei's vengeance had found them. Storm's End possessed stout walls, but little navy. Gendry turned to Davos. We need firepots ready, anchor chains across the mouth. And in Kurstar. Salad horse ships may yet arrive, the smuggler said, or vanish chasing coin. Gendry glanced at Melisandre. Can your god burn ships at sea? Fire obeys sacrifice. But the cost. Then, we meet them with steel first. Night poured ink-black across the bay when the Lannister fleet began bombardment. Trebuchets on decks hurled barrels of Greek fire. Green flames licked waves, screamed up ramparts. Defenders hurled stones, quarrels. Gendry worked the north battlements personally, heat of wildfire coating cheeks. He swung Stormbringer in arcs that cleaved incoming ropes, cut boarding hooks, sprayed sparks that fizzled on wet stone. Below, a tower groaned, timbers fracturing under constant strike. Brienne yelled for men, but the roar of flame drowned all. Gendry saw her blue cloak amid smoke, saw timber crack, saw her plunge into fire. He leapt from parapet to lower roof, slid on shale, sprinted. Stormbringer's glow parted smoke. He found her pinned beneath beam, flames licking edges of her hair. With grunt, he heaved girder, muscles screaming. Wood rolled. She gasped free. Ash haloed her face like gray snow. Together they staggered onto rampart, flames behind. "Thank you, your grace," she coughed. "Gendry," he said. "Steel only bends together." They fought side by side until dawn bled pink over Ashen Bay. By light, Lannister ships lay shattered on breakers, green flames still sputtering. Storm's End's walls were scorched but unbroken. Cheers rose hoarse, but body count climbed. 300 dead, more wounded. Gendry surveyed pyres being built, fists shaking. Melisandre stepped from shadow, gaze solemn. "Victory. A graveyard smells the same," he replied. She rested palm on his hammer hand. "True kings feel each loss. Let it temper you." He shut eyes, hearing crackle of pyres. "Temper iron too often, it snaps. Then we must quench your spirit in living water. Tomorrow, ride with me." They rode inland next dawn, alone, save for silent shadows. Dew beaded tall grass, larks pierced morning hush. Melisandre led to a glade where a hot spring pooled, steam curling through birch. "Place Stormbringer in the water," she instructed. Gendry obeyed. Sword hissed. Red veins dimmed. She knelt by water, dipping fingers, chanting. Ripples shimmered. He watched his reflection warp. Crown, scars, grief. Suddenly water stilled. He saw not himself, but a distant ice plain. An army of dead, blue eyes brighter than his. At their fore, a figure cold as void raised blade of night. Gendry's heart hammered. Shadows behind him coalesced into ravens. "Fly north," they croaked. He jerked back. Vision vanished. Melisandre exhaled slow. "Your path is chosen. North," he breathed. "Winter comes for all, but the hammer must meet the ice where it is strongest. How? If I march..." Storm's End falls to another lion attack. "Not all. Not if the lion lies in ashes," she said, eyes flicking toward Bay's wreckage. "Cersei bleeds. She will not rally soon. What of the Reach? The Iron Islands? Prophecy places your blade in the snow, beside a wolf." He thought of Jon Snow. Nodded. "Then we march." Preparations began. Ships salvaged. Supplies gathered. Davos took charge, grinning Bailey nerve. Brienne drilled recruits into Phalanx Guard. Melisandre oversaw a selection of volunteers, those willing to face dead. On final eve, Gendry visited the forge. Alone, he reheated Stormbringer, set hammer aside, and instead placed palm on glowing steel. Pain licked bone, yet he held. When he withdrew, palm bore imprint of sigil. Hammer crowned by flame, scar seared into flesh. "For every blow I strike," he whispered, "let me feel the heat." Outside, snowflakes drifted, though no clouds stained sky. White motes melted on forge embers, singing faint farewell. They sailed at winter solstice. Storm's End shrank astern, towers pale in dawn. On deck, Gendry leaned against rail, wind cold but exhilarating. Melisandre stood near prow, red hair whipping. Brienne polished Oathkeeper. Davos plotted course, eyes fixed where sea met sky, a smuggler trusting stars. Below, hundreds shivered but sang a smith's marching song, its beats mimicking hammer against anvil. "Strike the spark, the storm will break. Forge the dawn for children's sake. Bend the steel, but let it sing. Azor's hammer crowns the king." Gendry closed eyes, listening. For first time he felt the chorus weight lighten. He was still bastard, still smith, but not alone. Around him hearts beat in rhythm with his. Far north, beyond Wall's ruin, a horn of cold wind sounded. White shadows unfurled across wastes, marching unseen, tireless. But now, somewhere between ice and fire, sailed a spark seeking to blaze. The Game of Thrones had birthed many kings. Few had forged themselves. Fewer still wielded hope hotter than steel. The sea carried them onward, towards snow-wreathed destiny, as dawn's first full fire kissed Stormbringer's blade and set it burning like a second sun upon the waves. Ka. The wind that bore Stormbringer's new-forged banners northward carried with it a scent of the deep sea, brine, kelp, and a faint metallic tang of coming snow. Each dawn broke pale and chill, casting shimmering auroras across the waves so that the fleet seemed to sail through liquid sky. On the tallest forecastle, Gendry stood wrapped in a rough black cloak stitched with hammer and flame sigils, crown tucked into a satchel at his hip rather than upon his head. He preferred it that way. Let gilded steel rest until rights demanded its glare. For now, he was smith before king, listening to the rhythm of hulls, slapping swells, to the whispers of men who both praised and doubted him in equal breath. Storm's End's flagship, rebaptized Dawnforge at Davos' insistence, crested a swell like a black stag leaping a rolling meadow. The deck beneath Gendry's boots thrummed with a living heartbeat. Oak planks flexing, ropes groaning, sailors chanting a cadence to their labor. Nearby, Brienne of Tarth leaned over the rail, pale hair pulled tight at her nape, cheeks pink from sea spray. She eyed the horizon as if searching for an enemy to charge, though only seabirds wheeled in the frosted sky. "How fares our Smith King?" She spoke without turning, voice muffled by wool scarf. Gendry adjusted his cloak, gloved fingers stiff from cold. "If kings measure health by sleeplessness, I am hale indeed." He offered a wry half-smile she shared, fleeting as sunlight in winter. Behind them a hatch clattered open, and Davos emerged, one-handed against the wind, beard crystal-dusted. "Lady Brienne, your grace," he greeted, as though the titles were mittens ill-suited to calloused hands. "We'll sight Cape Wrath by nightfall if winds hold." "And the men?" Gendry asked, edging toward mutiny if the cook serves salted cod again. Davos produced a flask, offered it. Gendry declined, and the smuggler shrugged, swallowing a mouthful before continuing. "But they'll keep to duty. Word spreads of cold things stalking beyond the neck, stories enough to stiffen spines if not cod." "Rumors alone?" Brienne inquired. "I would see proof before I let fear command me." "Proof lies north of the wall," Davos said. "But we shan't reach it if bellies rebel first. I'll see what else our stores can yield. Perhaps the onions haven't rotted." Brienne touched the hilt of Oathkeeper, gaze distant. "When my father taught me swordplay, he said, 'Hunger is worse foe than steel. Keep the men fed, and they'll follow you into abyss.'" She glanced at Gendry. "Guess we're bound there soon enough." Gendry traced a faint scar on his palm where Stormbringer had kissed him. The brand still ached and cold, a reminder of fireside oaths. Abyss or forge, we'll find out. He excused himself to walk aft. As he passed huddled sailors mending a torn mainsail, their muttered conversation faltered. A few bowed heads, one spat superstition to ward off red magic. Gendry nodded to them, offered a steady smile, but their fear followed him like gulls trailing a tirade of waves. Below decks the air thickened with sweat and tar, and the earthy stink of soaking hemp. Dim lanterns revealed rows of hammocks swaying like cocoons. Amid them Melisandre knelt on bare boards inside a circle of chalked runes, ruby at her throat pulsing faintly. She traced the symbols with fingertips, murmuring prayers. When she sensed Gendry, she opened eyes that captured lantern light like twin coals. "You carry unease, my king." "Only the weight of every soul aboard," he replied, crouching outside her circle. "Will your god lighten it?" She tilted her head. "The Lord of Light is no mule to haul burdens. He offers sight, not solace. But your doubt stings brighter than cold, and that hinders the gaze." She gestured to chalk rune. "Step inside." Gendry hesitated, old instinct to trust only steel. but memory of the forge overcame. He entered. The air within felt warmer, as if sand hearths glowed under planks. Melisandre clasped his hands and closed her eyes. The ruby flared. Shadows in corners danced like silhouettes of dancers lost to a distant revel. Images flickered behind Gendry's lids, a direwolf silhouetted against moonlit snow, a weirwood's bleeding face dripping crimson into white powder, Stormbringer buried point down in cracked ice that pulsed with sapphire veins. Then faint but unmistakable, the howl of children. No, not children. Something older, wilder, echoing across black frost. He jerked back, breath ragged. The vision ended. Melisandre released him, studying his face as though mapping stars. "You heard it," she whispered. "The dead." Something beyond them. A call the Night King himself obeys. We near the chord of ancient lies. She stood, swaying slightly. For a moment her posture broke, revealing fatigue. The closer we draw, the louder the call becomes. But do not fear it. It fears you. If fear had sense it would. Gendry rubbed his eyes. We anchor at White Harbor soon. I needed alliances of flesh, not shadow. How do I convince Lord Manderley to provision us? He bent knee to the Starks, not some bastard king. Wyman Manderley loves two things: his people and vengeance against those who wronged them. Offer him both in Dawn's name, and he will feed your army until the tides freeze. Gendry's lips quirked. You'd make a fine master of whisperers. I trade in flame, not rumor. Melisandre smoothed her red silks, dimmer now against gloom, but still a dripping sunset. Go. Let the men see their king walks decks like any sailor. Faith kindles best when fed small sparks. Gendry left her circle feeling both bolstered and hollow. The faint warmth faded quickly, replaced by bite of sea air seeping through hull. Yet her words lingered, sliding between ribs like blunt chisel. The call the dead obey. If Stormbringer was to answer it, he must be louder than death's howl. Mark down. A detrimented sea. 2 days later the fleet coursed up the bight, hugging ragged coastlines where towers of broken stone jutted like dragon teeth. Snow flurries thickened to blankets by dusk, and by dawn pale ice floes ringed Dawn Forge's bow, scraping hull with mournful groans. The sailors cursed and crossed hearts. Davos ordered lookouts doubled, each breath puffed white in the crow's nest. Before noon they sighted the granite bastions of White Harbor. Goose-feathered drifts spiraled around turrets and the city's famed lighthouse burned dull gold, muted by sleep. Trade ships clustered within harbor walls like frightened lambs. Davos raised the peace flag. Signals flashed. Slow creak of gates parted. The fleet docked to a flurry of activity. Northerners in layered furs lined the quays, some clutching spears, others brandishing baskets of smoked fish or root vegetables, uncertain whether to defend or welcome. At the head of the throng, Lord Wyman Manderley himself, swathed in sable cloak big enough to blanket a warhorse, waited with half-raised brow. Snow dappled his beard like ash. Gendry disembarked flanked by Davos and Brienne. He wore cuirass and crown now. Better to strike first with symbol where words might founder. As boots hit icy planks, murmurs rippled through crowd. Gendry met Lord Wyman's solemn gaze, bowed low. "My lord of White Harbor." Manderley's cheeks puffed with a sigh, steam curling from mustache. "They say Starks ride south at your call. They say Lannister ships burn upon your shores. They say you're the storm-forged king, Azor Ahai." He eyed Stormbringer in Gendry's scabbard. "I say ports renew harbor fees come spring, so speak plain." Gendry smiled. "Plainly then, winter swallows us. I ride north to meet it head-on. I ask bread, salted fish, timber, what your people can spare. In return, I swear Stormbringer's edge will shield Manderley lands from whatever crawls out of night. And if I fail, my bones will rest beneath your walls as proof of my debt." "Naho, boysago." A hushed cough followed. Some in crowd nodded, others frowned. Lord Wyman pursed lip. "Bold guarantee. From one who owns little coin." "I own a forge hand skill," Gendry said. He unclasped Stormbringer, held the blade flat on outstretched palms. Let your smiths study this steel. Teach them how it was folded. That knowledge shall serve after wars fade. The Lord's eyes widened. Valyrian? No. Gendry shook head. Something older yet born anew. The method is yours if you feed my men. Manderly scratched chin. An intriguing barter. He glanced at Davos, an old nod of recognition. Then at Brienne's statue, still poise. Finally he swept gaze across his townsfolk. Weary faces, hollow bellies. We will feed you, he declared. A cheer burst from some throats. Others sighed with relief. He raised hand for quiet. But you will dine with us this night, King Gendry, so we might judge the measure of hammer that would crush winter. Gendry accepted, handing Stormbringer to Brienne for safekeeping. As they followed retinue into wintry streets, tiny hands tugged at his cloak, children in patched furs seeking warmth or wonder. He knelt, offered them pieces of polished stag antler buttons he had carved during voyage. Their eyes lit like hearth coals. One girl whispered, "Will your sword keep monsters away?" He touched his palm brand. "Not sword alone. Brave hearts like yours help too." They passed tanner stalls where hides hung stiff, bakeries exhaling faint nut bread scents, taverns where fishermen huddled nursing ale more water than wheat. Word of the Smith King beat faster than the falling snow, and by the time they reached the Merman's Court, a squat tower rising over frozen canal, crowds thickened again. Some shouted prayers to the old gods, others to the Seven. A few raised torches crying, "Dawn for the North." Gendry's steps grew heavier with the weight of expectation. Inside, vaulted halls glimmered with green glass mosaics depicting merlings entwined about tridents. Fireplaces roared, spitting sparks onto reed-woven rugs. Manderly's servants bustled, bearing platters of baked whitefish crusted with herbs, barrels of hot mulled cider, even a tray of lemon cakes rare this far north. Gendry watched the spread and wondered how much sacrifice such lavishness cost. At high table, he faced the great lord across cups of steaming mead. Brienne sat to his right, Davos left. Melisandre joined late, red dress stark among northern grays. Her presence sparked wary stares, but Wyman merely inclined head, polite. "Tell me," Manderly said, slicing into fish, "how a bastard smith from King's Landing became the prophesied champion." "By mistake," Gendry replied through rising steam. "But once you pick up a hammer, steel expects shaping. I will not shrug that duty even if I was not born to it." He recounted forging Stormbringer, sparing details of visions yet explaining Stannis' test, the crown's reluctant descent upon his head. He omitted leeches and fiery omens, focusing on mortal choices. Manderly listened, chewing slowly, eyes narrowed. Across hall music began. Lute, pipe, drum, mingling with laughter. Yet, here, hush reigned. Gendry concluded. In King's Landing every man jostled for coin and title while small folk starved. I rode away from that to find truth in iron. Now iron brings me to you. We fight for people first, prophecy second. Manderly swallowed. Words I like. I prayed the Starks would return with same tune. He leaned forward, candlelight flickering on jowls. But men still kneel to Winterfell. Jon Snow is king in the north by their hearts. How will they greet a second crowned head? New Stanton. By seeing we share cause, Gendry said. I'll kneel to no seat save Dawn's survival. If Jon Snow demands I shed my crown, I'll weigh it. My crown did not make Stormbringer blaze. My deeds will. Manderly huffed, not derision but soft approval. If unity is your coin, take mine with it. White Harbor provisions are yours. He lifted mead horn. To the forging of dawn. Glasses clinked. Thus sealed, supplies flowed. Salt pork, oat sacks, flitches of bacon, barrels of pickled crab. Manderly's carpenters reinforced ships with pine boards cured for long voyages. Blacksmiths gathered in Forgehouse where Brienne displayed Stormbringer. They marveled at its layered sheen, gleamed secrets from the blade's subtle ripples. Yet not all in White Harbor hailed the Smith King. At dawn's gray cusp, Gendry visited docks to inspect cargo holds, and found a knot of men hissing curses, at a red-robed shadow. Melisandre stood still as blood-stained statue, while fishermen accused her fires of luring storms to nets, of stealing firstborn luck. One lunged with fishhook. Gendry interposed, deflecting with leather-bound forearm. He stared them down until anger ebbed to shame. They skulked off, muttering. "Your presence draws flint sparks," he said after. "Flint is useless unless struck," she replied. But her voice trembled. He noticed a small scratch on her wrist from hook. Without thinking, he took her hand, inspected wound. Her skin felt fever-warm even in cold. When fear shrouds minds, they lash at what they don't grasp. They fear darkness yet strike light. She withdrew hand gently. "We must burn brighter, my king." He met her red eyes, glimpsed fatigue, and a loneliness deeper than sea trenches. He nodded once. "Then let's stoke the forge." Marked down. "Jen?" Ravens rode ahead, carrying word of their march to Winterfell. Jon Snow's reply came swift. "Winterfell stands with the hammer-crowned king. Meet us at the King's Road Barrows." Gendry had Davos read the parchment thrice, savoring each sparse line. Jon's plain script said more than banners ever could. The pack had not forgotten its estranged pup. They left White Harbor on midwinter morning. 70 ships bulging with provisions, masts rimed in hoarfrost. Frozen gusts whipped sails, but hearts aboard beat hotter for the welcome they expected inland. The fleet sailed up the White Knife until ice jams forced disembarkation. From there, the army trudged along banks through drifts knee-high. Gendry marched at the fore, hammers slung across back when not shaping quick repairs to wagon axles that split in cold. 5 days into trek, drifting horrors thickened into a blizzard that devoured sky. They camped in Spruce Hollow, tents sagging under powder. Fires sputtered, sparks extinguished by flurries. Melisandre strode from pit to pit, murmuring flame words. Each hearth flared to life, wood burning with unnatural vigor. Men cheered, but some whispered again of witchcraft. When morning sun found them, pale disk behind gauze, they discovered footprints at forest's edge. Bare human prints, dozens, leading into gloom. Scouts followed. Soon they returned shaken, recounting frozen corpses of wildlings half-eaten by wolves yet moving, eyes blue as glacier bloom. Gendry assembled command tent. Davos, Brienne, a pair of mannerly captains, Melisandre. "The dead walk within these woods," said one captain. Face gray. "We lost 2 men to arrows of ice. I swear," the shaft screamed. Brienne laid map on table. Traced route. "We're days from Barrow's rendezvous. If dead harry our flanks, we risk losing supply carts." Gendry steepled fingers. Visions in forge returned. Stormbringer marking cracked ice. "We press on, but forge shield walls for wagons. Wooden barricades strapped to sides, archers atop." Davos nodded. "We'll move slower yet safer. And send Raven to Jon. Dead sighted southeast of Barrows." Ennende. Melisandre's ruby glowed faint. Fire arrows would undo ice better than steel. "Oil scarce," Davos said, "and wind snuffs torches." "Then we use faith," she replied. They rigged braziers on sledges dragged by mules. Melisandre tended coals, chanting until flames licked white. When undead attacked the next dusk, silent silhouettes emerging from dusky spruce, the white flames erupted into whips, casting ghouls into frosted steam. Archers rained fletched shafts. Brienne led cavalry charge, hammering whites to shards of crystal bone. Gendry strode amid carnage, Stormbringer cleaving shoulders, its red veins igniting each corpse it kissed. Sparks shattered the night, painting snow in molten runes. Afterward, panting soldiers stood ringed by steaming piles of charred flesh. No casualties save 1 mule. Morale soared. Some knelt to touch Gendry's scorched boots. He lifted them to their feet. "Our strength is shared," he told them. "We live because each man held the line." Melisandre watched from ridge, snow swirling about her like moths round lantern. She raised arms, moonlit clouds parted, revealing a star burning crimson above. She spoke 1 word in Valyrian, and the star brightened and winked out. Few noticed. Those who did whispered of red comets in ages past. Markdown. And they reached the barrows under ghost-white sky. Rolling mounds blanketed in snow resembled drifts over sleeping giants. Atop largest stood a column of armored figures, wolves emblazoned on shields, black furs whipping. Jon Snow rode down, ghost padding by his horse's flank, huge as small pony, fur-dusted silver with frost. When Jon dismounted, he and Gendry clasped forearms. Memories of brotherhood days flickered between them. Comma of time when world simpler and death less certain. "Good to see you still breathing, Smith," Jon said with a faint grin. Likewise, crow turned wolf. Gendry's laugh steamed. They exchanged tidings. Jon's host, 3,000 Stark spears, 2,000 Freefolk archers, a handful of giant survivors, pockets of Umbers and Karstarks. Sansa remained at Winterfell, mustering reserves, while Arya scouted ahead with silent feet. Bran, now called Three-Eyed Raven, kept to Godswood, watching paths outside mortal ken. That night the two kings sat by campfire between barrows. Ghosts dozed behind them, ears twitching at distant owls. Brienne sparred with Tormund Giantsbane near tents, laughter and curses echoing. Melisandre sat apart, fragrance of myrrh drifting. Her eyes seldom left Bran's open-eyed ravens circling overhead. Gendry prodded coals. "Winter consume us if we quarrel over crowns. I'll bend knee to you, Jon." "Oh, no." Jon shook head. "No need. The living need every banner. Keep yours. Fight beside me, not under. When war ends, we'll decide what's left." Gendry looked up, embers reflecting in his cobalt eyes. "Then, dawn finds us equal." Jon extended hand, Gendry clasped it. Snowflakes melted on their joined grip. Days following, armies merged. The hammers of storms and trained with northern pikes. Free folk learned shield wall from Brienne. Gendry forged arrowheads of black iron in field forges, inscribing runes taught by Melisandre. Each arrow shot from Manderley yew burst into sparks upon striking whites. Jon drilled cavalry charges with giant skirmishers, using sledges to pull massive stones for sling and spear. Scouts returned with grim news. The Night King's army breached Last Hearth, raising its dead, trod toward Winterfell by frozen King's Road. Bran's ravens confirmed sighting of undead giants, mammoths. Packs of silent shadow panthers, bound together by frigid sorcery. Time bled away like warmth from fingertips. At War Council beneath Barrow's earthen roof, torches flickering on carved First Men runes, Bran spoke through Arya's lips. "He comes for me. I am memory. He seeks oblivion. Bring me to Weirwood at Winterfell. There the final knot tightens." Gendry listened, aware of Melisandre's unblinking gaze on Bran. After meeting adjourned, he approached her. "You saw this." "Partly," she admitted. "The child of storms and the child of winter stand together at a bleeding tree." She looked beyond him, eyes capturing shadows. "You must be ready to strike when Heart of Night opens. Will Stormbringer suffice? If your heart guides your hand." He exhaled, saw his breath swirl with hers. Two sparks dancing in stillness. Markdown. And hua. They marched again. King's Road shimmered in icy moonlight as file after file tramped north. Giants bounded ahead, uprooting trees to block side ravines, forcing whites onto chosen fields. Wildling children rode shaggy rowdy dogs at flanks, whooping battle cries. It felt impossible dream. Tribes once enemies of realm now hoisting Stark banners alongside a bastard Smith's flame. 3 nights out from Winterfell, fields of moss-choked stone gave way to open snowy plain. Scouts raced back. The dead were close, marching in mass behind swirling blizzard that seemed to think, to search. War horns sounded. The combined host formed ranks, cavalry on wings, shield wall center, archers behind trenches filled with pitch. Gendry rode Roan Destrier, Stormbringer glowing faint through scabbard. The snowstorm approached like a living wall, lightning flickering inside clouds of frost. Underfoot the ground trembled to thousands of skeletal strides. Drums began, giant hollow logs hammered by umber youth, Thum thum, matching heartbeats. Stillness held. Then the blizzard parted, revealing a figure astride an undead stallion. Night King, crown of spiked ice, eyes starved of all color, spear of frozen light resting across lap. He raised gaunt hand. Behind him, countless wights halted. Silent legion stretching to black horizon. An awful hush fell. Snow crunched in throats. Gendry nudged his mount forward until he stood a dozen paces beyond shield wall. Jon mirrored from other flank astride a pale mare. Two kings facing one. Wind moaned. Night King tilted head as if curious at mortal brazenness. He drew breath. No sound came, and lowered hand. A second later the ground burst. Scores of wights erupted in sprint. War exploded. Arrows streaked. Pitch trenches ignited roaring lines. Giant stones hurtled smashing ice wolves. Cavalry thundered into flanks, hooves splintering brittle bones. Brienne led wedge punching deep. Tormund howled berserker rage. Gendry spurred into melee, Stormbringer searing through frost-clad torsos. Each strike birthed crimson arc that melted snow. He fought near Jon's left wing, glimpsing the king in the north engaged with White Walkers, whose crystal blades met Valyrian Longclaw in shards of blue sparks. The battle surged like tide. Where undead fell, they tried to rise again unless burned. Melisandre and her acolytes moved behind lines, casting fire from clay pots. Flames burned white where her chants peaked, shriveling dead to ash. Yet for every wight felled, two more climbed over. Gendry cut down an armored walker, its weapon clanged aside. His sword's red veins scorched through crystalline sternum and creature shattered to snow dust. Manderly archers cheered, redoubling volleys. But then horns brayed in frantic stutter. Right flank folding. Undead giants crashed through, flinging stark spears like straw dow. One seized a warhorse, snapped its spine. Men fled screaming. Brienne galloped to intercept, but horse stumbled under weight of swarming ghouls. Gendry roared, charged. He leapt from saddle, hammer swinging to cave skull of white latched to Brienne's shoulder. She regained footing, elbows dripping black ichor. Together, they faced advance. A giant with tusk-crowned helm lumbering, chain-dragging spiked anchor. Gendry ducked as anchor whistled overhead, crunching earth. He lunged, Stormbringer slicing hamstring. The giant howled. Brienne drove Oathkeeper into throat. Black-blue ichor gushed. But the Colossus staggered, grabbed Brienne, fingers cracking plate. She grunted, shield arm pinned. Gendry seized hammer, its head glowing red from splattered gore, and slammed the giant's wrist, once, twice, until bones splintered. Brienne fell free, rolled. Giant swung toward Gendry. He raised sword two-handed overhead. Flames burst brighter than midday sun, and he cleaved through clavicle. Giant split and collapsed. Avalanching snow. Cheers erupted, cut short by new dread. Overhead, cry of undead dragon trembled stars. Viserion, wings ragged, body stitched with frost, swooped, exhaling torrent of azure flame that flash-froze trenches, extinguishing fires, encasing men in glassy tombs. Panic rippled. Jon shouted commands, but voices drowned in roar. Gendry's heart buckled. Visions of black frost cracked sky. He looked to Stormbringer. Blade flickered uncertain, perhaps fearing former sibling dragon's chill. He turned to Melisandre's distant silhouette. Her arms raised, chanting. Flames circled around her but faltered under dragon frost. He pushed toward her, cutting a path. Brienne and Davos close. Undead bore down. Ironborn archers fell. Giants roared defiance. Everywhere blue fire seared white. He reached Melisandre standing beside Bran, who sat unspeaking on sled attended by free folk. Arya knelt ready with Valyrian dagger. Bran's eyes rolled white, gone into raven swirling above dragon. Melisandre's ruby dimmed to sullen ember. She whispered, "The heart opens." "Strike true." "What heart?" Gendry shouted over hurricane of ice. Bran's head snapped upright, his eyes focused on Gendry. In voice older than bark he spoke. Beyond the storm stands a weirwood yet unslain. Beneath its roots, the forge of the dawn slumbers. Feed Stormbringer there, and night will crack. Melisandre seized Gendry's wrist. Follow the direwolf. She gestured. Ghost bounded north through battle, weaving. Gendry paled. I can't leave them. Your hammer is wasted here. Go, Brienne urged, hefting shield. Davos gripped Gendry's shoulder. We'll hold line. Reluctance warred in him, but he saw sense. He whistled. His roan galloped near, nostrils steaming frost. He mounted, Stormbringer's glow reflecting panic and purpose. Ghost howled, sprinted toward forest edge where blizzard parted. Gendry drove heels, following. Behind, Dragon screeched. Azor Gale chased him, freezing branches mid-crack. His cloak stiffened, edges crisp with rime. He lowered head, trusting wolf and fate. They plunged into gloom of ancient pines, where snow fell thicker, but air warmer. Odd hush. Stormbringer's red vines flared stronger every gallop. Ghost led to clearing encircled by bent weirwoods, their pale bark webbed crimson like arteries. At center towered a colossal heart tree, larger than any legend, trunk gnarled into shapes of entwined lovers, faces half-formed in wood. Its leaves, red as spilled wine, rustled though no wind stirred. Gendry dismounted, approaching reverently. Beneath roots yawned a rift glowing faint orange. Heat emanated, a forge's breath. Ghost circled perimeter, then sat, golden eyes watchful. Gendry knelt, felt warmth seep into numb fingers. He withdrew Stormbringer. Its blade blazed crimson. Voice like Smith's bell rang in skull. Temper me. He took deep breath, thrust sword point into rift. Metal kissed molten rock. Flames spurted up trunk veins. Leaves ignited but did not burn, glowing like stained glass. Stormbringer drank heat. Red veins grew white hot, then gold. The brand on his palm scorched, doubling agony. He grit teeth, pushed blade deeper, until hilt seared wrist greet. Visions slammed him. Robert laughing atop Iron Throne. Renly riding green field. Ned Stark's head bowed beneath Fox. Davos pulling boy from Blackwater. Arya's needle flashing, Sansa's quill scratching, Melisandre's sorrow-lit eyes. The Night King's face cracked, blue shards falling. Beneath all, a woman's voice, warm as forge, asked, "Will you bear love's pain?" "Yes," Gendry whispered. Roots quivered, parting. From within rift, a surge of molten flame shot into sword, traveling into him. He screamed, a sound of nails drawn across anvil, and sword erupted into pure white fire. Leaves exploded in dazzling shower, yet tree remained. He tore blade free. Flames coiled along edge but gave no smoke, light without heat. Ghost barked. Above clearing, thunder rolled. The blizzard parted like curtains. Through gap Gendry saw Viserion circling battlefield, frostfire raining. He mounted swiftly, sword sheathed, yet scabbard glimmered through leather. He rode back, Ghost racing ahead. At forest edge, whites closed but burst into ash when they neared sword's glow. He charged onto field. Chaos. Fires extinguished, trenches frozen, men grappling in ice. Jon faced Night King amid shattered corpses, Longclaw knocked aside, desperation in dark eyes. Viserion circled overhead, preparing descent. Gendry spurred, Stormbringer drawn. Its white flames sliced night. He left horse mid-gallop, sprinted across cracked ground. Each stride melted ice puddles. Night King saw him, expressionless mask, raised spear. Gendry swung sword meeting ice spear, mid-air. Contact detonated, thunderclap. Spear shattered into shards. Night King reeled, blue eyes widening. But Gendry did not press. His gaze tracked sky. Viserion diving at Jon. He hurled Stormbringer like thrown hammer. Blade streaked comet bright, struck dragon's skull between dead eyes. For breathless heartbeat nothing. Then crystal fissures spread. dragon shrieked, flames turning white. Wings contorted. It exploded into diamond dust, scattering across plain as snow of light. Night King screamed. Soundless, yet earth shook. He lurched toward falling blade. Gendry sprinted, seized Stormbringer mid-spin, momentum carrying him into upward arc, slicing Night King's chest. Crack. Ice split. Blue glow bled out. Night King staggered, glaring hate, then shattered into whirlwind of snowflakes swirling away on cold wind. Instantly, whites collapsed, motionless corpses once more. Silence enveloped the plain, save distant crackle of rekindled fires. Men wept. Giants sank to knees. The first sun ray in weeks pierced clouds, sliding across melting ice, gilding rising steam. Jon approached, armor dented, blood speckled. He stared at sword still flaming white. Then at Gendry. Face half lit. You did it. We did, Gendry corrected, voice hoarse. Ghost trotted near, bumping Gendry's thigh. Brienne arrived breathless. Davos behind, grinning like man who tasted onion soup after siege. Tormund whooped, tossed helm. Melisandre emerged last, eyes reflecting sword's light, tears streaking cheeks. She bowed. Azor Ahai indeed. Gendry shook head. No. Name me Forgeborn, nothing else. He glanced skyward. Dawn bleeding rose. He looked across battlefield. Dead men. Melted trenches. Corpses dissolving. Victory felt heavy, not exultant. Jon laid hand on his shoulder. Come. Winterfell awaits. Gendry sheathed Stormbringer, white flame dimming to faint ember within metal. Snow began falling again, gentle, peacebound. They marched north in somber harmony. Along road survivors cleared bodies, sang ballads of hammer and wolfdaughter. Atop Winterfell's walls, Sansa watched them approach, tears gleaming. Bran within Godswood whispered to ravens, sending memory across world. Night had cracked, but not yet ended. South. Cersei's embers stirred. East, rumors of queen with dragon still flew. Yet on banks of Arctic dawn, two bastards stood side by side, hammered and carved by fate's furnace, their friendship a blade sharpened for challenges yet to come. And somewhere in silent snowy grove, a great weirwood glowed faintly, its leaves whispering a lullaby older than kingdoms, embers of humanity's first forge singing soft promise. From humble heat, dawn is born. A.K. Ineditamidi. Snow lay soft as silk upon Winterfell's towers, a deceptive gentleness masking the wreckage of haste. Broken shingles, arrow-slit walls hastily repaired with green pine planks, soot stains where pitch had been poured and torches hurled back. Atop the battlements, Gendry breathed crisp dawn air, the white hush of a world between wars. It carried voices, smiths clanging in courtyards, maesters calling for more bandages, children laughing because victory felt like spring even in deep winter. He leaned over the parapet, fingers numb despite heavy gloves, watching stable hands coax skittish horses toward the warming sheds. The beasts snorted clouds. Their flanks still bore chalk runes drawn before battle, talismans of luck that seemed to glisten now with melted frost. Behind him a door creaked. Jon joined, steel-toed boots crunching frost. The king in the north wore no crown, just a frayed black cloak stitched with a direwolf sigil patch near the throat. He rested forearms on crudely patched Merlon beside Gendry. Neither spoke at first. The quiet said more than words. A silence of comrades who had seen the precipice and returned, though pieces of them remained suspended over the edge, fluttering in the wind like lost banners. Jon exhaled fog. They're counting the dead. Less than we feared, more than we can bear. His eyes followed two pyres smoking in courtyard, one heaped with broken spears and shields, another with giant bones stacked like felled trees. No victory without mourning. Gendry's gaze drifted to the white-hot brand on his palm, skin now scarred in shape of miniature hammer aflame. It itched whenever he closed fingers, as if reminding him it still lived. He flexed slowly. Grief is ore. We either let it rust or forge it into resolve. Jon gave a half-smile. Spoken by a Smith King. The smile faded. But what now? The Night King is gone, yet snow still falls. Winter isn't slain. Only the spearhead broken. South, Cersei sharpens, knives tactical. East, dragons circle. The realm could fracture along any of those scars. No. Steel alone persuades no one, Gendry murmured. But perhaps fire tempered with mercy might. Jon studied him sidelong. Mercy may not sway Cersei. Then temper again with justice. Footsteps quick and light announced Arya before she appeared. Hood down, hair unbound, and dancing black against snowflakes. She carried a roll of parchment. Ravens from the south, she said, handing it to Jon. Lord Glover reports Lannister riders crossing the Trident. Not an army, scouts. They're probing holds loyal to us. Jon's brow furrowed as he scanned sigils wax pressed alongside message. Glover fears the crown's hosts will march once passes thaw. Cersei is gathering grain stores at Harrenhal under Sir Gregor's guard. Gregor still lives. Gendry's knuckles whitened. Lives if monster blood counts, Arya said. Word claims Qyburn's arts keep him relentless. She bounded onto battlement like a cat. I've drawn up lists of captains camping along the Green Fork who might desert if they knew the undead threat is ended, but they'll need proof. Stormbringer's shards of Viserion still lie on that field, Gendry said. Send pieces south. Let lords hold them and no frostfires ended. Small shards, Arya agreed, already mapping theft in mind. A relic's whisper travels faster than ravens. Jon straightened. I'll send riders within the hour. Arya, choose your scouts. Take the quickest path to the twins. Lord Edmure may help spread word along the river. Arya smirked, melted into staircase. Jon tapped knuckles on rough stone. And you? The men expect the one who slew Night King to guide them next. Some already call you Dawn Prince. Gendry rubbed temple. The last great prophecy nearly damned us twice. I won't bind my fate to riddles again. He looked toward Godswood, where red leaves rustled around ancient weirwood. But I was born of Robert Baratheon. Stormland's lords may rally if I stand before them. That could pinch Cersei between hammer and wolf. Thus, if she doesn't burn Storm's into rubble first. If she lights wildfire there, Gendry said. She leaves King's Landing hollow and Euron Greyjoy restless. A lion mauled loses bite, Jon considered. Stormland's front, north holds the neck. Riverlands bleed still, could be healed by joint rule. And the Vale? Robar Royce arrived last night, Gendry said. Littlefinger's poison's gone from wings. He says Lord Robin is ready to lend knights, if convinced war is just. He offered a lopsided grin. Perhaps a joust will decide it. Harry the Heir still fancies himself champion, Jon chuckled. All right, we craft alliances like a sword, layered, folded, unbreakable. First layer, food. Winter towns starve. Manderley's barges can haul grain north from the arbor, and pay for it with Lannister gold found in their captured supply wagons, Gendry finished. A tidy ledger. They shook hands, an oath without parchment. Snow thickened. Bells tolled below, calling mourners to pyres. The kings descended spiral steps, boots echoing. Hours later, courtyard air swirled with pine smoke, incense, hot tears freezing on cheeks. Rows of slain lay beneath shrouds stitched overnight. Women pressed tokens into stiff fingers, scrap of ribbon, carved charm, child's tooth that had awaited first lost story. Gendry walked line with hammer held at shoulder, bowing to each fallen. Melisandre moved opposite edge, murmuring Valyrian hymns, ruby glowing each time a torch touched pyre timber. Her face looked drawn, years settling on it, as if victory drained her. When the last torch crackled, she met Gendry at pyre's head. Flesh repaid death, she said softly. My time grows thin now. He searched her eyes. No flicker of jest there. You think the Lord of Light withdraws favor? He asks return. I have seen myself walk barefoot into dawn, unafraid. Her smile was weary as twilight. When purpose ends, embers fade. Teach the realm to feed their own fires before mine gutters. Then she stepped aside, leaving him alone by mounting flames. Ash drifted. Each spark whirled upward like prayer. That night beneath timber roofs of Great Hall, surviving captains feasted on bowls of onion broth thickened with barley, stew of goat and winter carrot. Ale flowed thin but hearty. Sansa presided at high table, auburn hair pinned back with snowflake-shaped silver. She addressed each wounded soap-seller and spearwife with same courtesy she gave Royce or Manderley. Over steaming cauldron, she outlined ration schedules, road-clearing crews, orphans' hearth program. Practical, meticulous. Gendry admired her steadiness. She caught his gaze once, nodded, compassion and steel wedded in blue eyes. Brienne fetched him after second course. "Ghost is pacing in God's wood," she said. "Bran wants you." They walked through cloisters crusted with icicles, lantern-casting moth-wing shadows. Godswood glimmered white and red, Weirwood's face slick with meltwater tears. Bran sat beneath root arch in wheeled chair, his gaze distant beyond candle of existence itself. Ravens perched overhead. Gendry halted before him. "You needed me." Bran's eyes refocused, storm-gray depths reflecting swordfire, glimpsed days ago. Memories shift. The Night King's death untethered many spirits. But one remains, your line, forged in secrets. Robert's bastardy was no accident. Your mother was last scion of a line older than dragons. Gendry stiffened. "I never knew her name, only that she sang me barge lullabies." "Her name was Esselena Wendwater," Bran said. "Descended from the Fisher King of Dawn Age, sworn to guard tide where Lightbringer landed after first forging. Her blood carries ancient memory of that flame. That is why Stormbringer answered you." Gendry's throat dried. "And what does memory demand now? That your line guide men to rebuild, not conquer. The age of kings as predators wanes. New steel must be shared to all hands." Bran's voice held no command, only simple statement carved from bedrock. "When you reclaim Storm's End, open its forges to apprentices from each kingdom. Knowledge forges peace better than treaties." "Your vision carries weight," Gendry admitted. He knelt, palm pressed to damp roots. "I will honor it." Bran reached, placed thin hand on his shoulder. "When white ravens fly from Old Town, winter's height passes. Prepare for seas then, not swords." Gendry stood, mind churning. Snowflakes balanced on hair like silent counsel. Ghost sniffed his gauntlet, amber eyes solemn. As he left Godswood, he found Arya lounging on stone bench, nightfall dagger spinning between fingers. "So you're mythic heir to Tide Lords." She grinned. "Does it change taste of broth?" "Broth still bland," he laughed. "But maybe I season it with sea salt now." Silence grew comfortable. She tucked dagger. "I ride it first light with relic shards. See if Edmure can stomach bravery again." Her gaze flickered to him, almost shyly. "Keep living till I'm back." He touched her gloved hand, calloused as his. "I'll try." She was gone into night like breath. Morning found Winterfell gates creaking open for cavalcade south. Arya's lean courser leading half-score outriders. Wagons bearing dragon glass and Viserion shards escorted by Manderley spearmen. Above them banners snapped, wolf and hammer braided. Gendry watched from wall beside Brienne. He spoke low. "If she finds trouble, she'll cut through it," Brienne said. "Sword of the Dark." He nodded, though heart tightened as raiders vanished over ridge. The following days bled into tasks. Gendry and Davos drafted supply routes. Arbor wine for morale, iron from Banefort mines for arrowheads, fish nets cut to weave defensive nets against wildfire pots. Frey tolls at the Twins, once extortionate, now free after Arya's earlier. Discussion. But new Frey descendants petitioned for peace. Their towers fly fresh flags, maybe fear of wolves howling at door. Gendry spent nights at Forge, renovated in Winterfell Yard. Bellows repaired, anvil ground anew out. He shaped spearheads, door hinges, even children's toy swords. People gathered to watch. Nobles astonished a king blackened his own hands. Small folk inspired to offer little to help. Pump bellows, pour water, fetch coal. Among them a skinny girl named Bessa proved quick with tongs. He taught her to draw wrought iron. She smiled shyly each time sparks flew. Her father, crippled shepherd, wept to see her purpose. One cold dusk Melisandre approached forging glow. Base pallid. Ruby, a faint ember. The forge answers you still. It answers anyone with patience, he replied, wiping soot streak. God, you seem tired. I feel the dawn inside my bones. Soon I will walk west, where setting sun kisses sea. There I will return gift of fire, she said softly. He set hammer down. I once thought your flames enslaved destiny. Now I see they only illuminate paths. Will you not stay and light them longer? My light would outshine new sparks that must kindle. She offered small leather pouch. The last ashes of Stormbringer's first forging. Cast them upon sea when you sail south. Let waters remember fire. He accepted, pulse heavy. Thank you. She touched his cheek briefly, warmth lingering. Lead them well, Esselena son. Then she turned, scarlet gown swirling, and vanished beyond curtain of falling snow. Some claimed dawn after that glowed brighter. Some said they glimpsed her silhouette walking barefoot toward western horizon until swallowed by sun's glare, never returning. 3 weeks passed before Arya's raven arrived. Edmure Tully accepted relic proof, river lords waver. But dark ink warned of forces massing at Harrenhal. Sir Gregor commands 30,000, Euron's uneasy fleet sails upriver with wildfire pots stacked like rotten melons. Arya slipped through camps counting sigils, gold lions, redwoods of Connington, even flayed man standards, Roose Bolton's bastard nephew seeking new favor. Jon slammed fist on map. If those hosts reach Crossroads Inn, they split our river supply lines. Sansa tapped finger. They can't push north until neck thaws. But they'll choke Riverlands again, starve small folk, and pivot east to Gulltown to force Vale to heal. Robar Royce, recently arrived, frowned. They cannot hold both riverbanks if we seize Moat Cailin and strike their flank. Gendry pointed. Better. Sail from White Harbor down coast to Storm's End. Rally my lords, then hit King's Road south of Crossroads. Forging Pincer. Euron's fleet stretched upstream would be trapped between tides and storm ships, built in Storm's End yards. Davos stroked beard. Risky but bold. Tide boats built quick if we start now. Greyjoys fear storms more than axes. Jon nodded. We divide. I hold moat, cut passes. You sail. Sansa administers north. Brienne raised voice. I ride with Gendry. And I, said Tormund, grinning wide. South smells warmer. Maybe women there like red beards. Damen? Even Royce volunteered knights to accompany. Thus plan formed. Over next fortnight, shipwrights of White Harbor bent green pine into hulls, tar steaming as it sealed planks. Manderley barges loaded with grain set off first, escorted by Glover bowmen atop war rafts. Gendry oversaw the forging of anchor chains thick as a man's waist, designed to stretch across estuary near Storm's End to trap ironborn serpents when time came. The night before departure, Jon visited Gendry in smithy lit by whale oil lamps. He watched Gendry shape first link of what would become Oathchain, each strike ringing promise across courtyard. After final quench, Gendry set tongs aside. Jon spoke. Do you ever wonder if we fail? Every blow I strike, Gendry answered. But steel does not ask whether it will break. It exists to try. Jon smiled thinly. If south falls, remember Winterfell's gates remain open to you. And if north falls, Storm's End's ramparts await you. They clasped wrists, forging vow. Dawn painted sky peach when fleet set sail. Gendry stood at prow of Dawnforge, renamed Dawnforged Storm for new tide. Brienne beside, hair braided. The white knife shimmered. Messages of hope fluttered from docked balconies. Children waved rag banners. Women tossed pine branches like laurel. As Hull passed mouth of harbor, Sea spray salted lips. Gendry tasted memory of childhood days rowing on Blackwater. But now, Horizon beckoned not fear, but charge. Days blended into Navy routine. Gulls crying, crews singing hammer rhythm shanties, Brienne drilling deck squads between mast poles, Davos charting stars. Stormbringer hung in cabin, but flames flickered along runes at times, reflecting sunset across waves. Gendry spent hours by rail, palm pressed to hilt, sensing distant storms as though sword felt kinship with thunderheads brooding south. Halfway down narrow sea they encountered wreckage. Charred timbers bearing Kraken sigils, bloated bodies in golden armor. Lannister supply convoy evidently attacked by pirates or Ironborn's schism. Among debris floated barrels of fresh oranges. Sailors hauled them aboard, relief palpable at burst of citrus after weeks of saltport. That evening Gendry convened captains in lantern-lit hold. They planned surprise landing at Massey's Hook, circumventing watchtowers, using knowledge from Davos smuggler days to slip past galleys. Scouts would ride inland, stir Stormlanders to rally at Stonehelm, then march on Storm's End. As meeting adjourned, Brienne lingered. "You treat these men like equals," she observed. "Kings often forget that." "Can't forget what I was last year." He chuckled. "Though crown heavy, I still crave hammer's weight more." She studied him, soft warmth, though still shy. "I once dreamed of being a knight accepted for deeds, not birth. Seeing a king who thinks the same makes me believe." He touched her vambrace. "We both forge our place." Weather changed 2 days later. The Southron gale, warm yet unpredictable, heaving swells. Sails snapped. Crew trimmed. Dawn-forged storm cut through white horses like axe through leather, but smaller supply cogs lagged. Davos cursed Euron's luck if they encountered raiders. At dusk Lookout shouted, "Sails on horizon!" Greyjoy krakens, half-dozen longships, oars beating. Euron's outriders. Deck sprang to life. Archers knocked flaming arrows, catapults loaded chainshot. Gendry strode to bow, Stormbringer unsheathed. Its white flame mirrored dying sun. Brienne took position guarding helm. Davos judged wind. He turned to Gendry. "We can outpace them, but supply cogs cannot. Then we fight." Ironborn horns brayed. First volley of quarrels splashed short. Gendry ordered signal. 2 long blinks from polished shield to Manderley Gullass off starboard. They tightened formation, forming crescent to shield supply cogs. Long ships closed, ramming angles glinting. Grappling hooks flung, one lodged in dawn-forged Storm's gunwale. Brienne severed rope with Oathkeeper before borders crossed. Return fire roared. Catapults hurled chainshot that tore through longship mast, sending rigging crashing. Flaming arrows seeded deck of another, but Ironborn laughed, stamping out flames with sea-soaked boots, singing salt carnage. One longship broke through, gliding broadside to supply cog. Ironborn threw planks, surged across. Cries of merchant sailors rose. Gendry leapt onto railing, balanced, then jumped onto narrow yardarm extending from longship's mast, running across like alley cat. He landed amid Ironborn who momentarily froze at blazing sword. Stormbringer cut semicircle. 2 raiders fell smoking, armor glowing red. Captain brandished twin axes. Gendry parried, spark showering, then disarmed with hammer riposte. Captain's gaze reflected red veins before sword pierced mail. Body slid away. Sudden noise behind. Euron's flagship Silence loomed, black sail beast bearing iron-spiked ram. Eyes painted on prow glared. Crossbow turrets cranked. Gendry signaled Brienne. She angled Dawnforged Storm into intercept. Silences ran slammed, jolt shuddering timbers. Battle became maelstrom of screams, clashing steel, splintering wood. Euron himself swung from yardarm onto Dawnforged Storm's quarterdeck, wearing Sea Dragon scaled coat, eye patch emblazoned with blood-red kraken. "Where's the flaming blacksmith?" he crowed, saber licking salty air. Brienne confronted him. They exchanged flurry, her blade meeting his cutlass. He danced, arrogant grin taunting. Gendry bounded across collapsed spar onto deck, landing behind Euron. Pirates circled, but Stormbringer's blaze kept them at bay. Euron parried Brienne, flicked glance to Gendry. Ah, the bastard king. Heard you slew Ice God. Bet he didn't laugh half so hard as I will. Laugh later, Gendry growled, advancing. Euron feinted at Brienne, dashed aside, slashed at Gendry. Sparks flew. Brienne pressed from opposite side. For Heartbeat's deck became forging hearth. Clang, hiss, glint. Euron retreated toward helm. He kicked loose coil, entangling Brienne, threw dagger at Gendry, deflected by hammer pommel. He darted, leapt to rail, waved mock salute, and dived into sea. Moments later, silence disengaged, retreating under arrow storm. Longships followed, some aflame. Cheers erupted. Men stomped deck. But victory toll heavy. Manderley Gallius listed, hull blown. They patched, pumped water. Night fell, moon rising silver. Gendry stood aft, scanning waves for sign of Euron. Nothing but shifting foam. Brienne joined, arm bruised. He escaped like eel. Hell, slither back, Gendry said, then sighed. But first taste shows him dawn-forged storm bites. Brienne smirked. Hammer's head bigger than his ego? Not yet. They laughed for first time since North. At dawn, fleet anchored near Rocky Cove hidden by leaning cliffs. Scouts rowed ashore. Scaled goat paths vanished into pines. Hours later they returned with Stormlander news. Lady Shira of Estermont rayed garrison ready to join. Lord Caron's banners restless. But Storm's End stands silent. Gatehouse sealed by Cersei's puppet castellan Sir Lannet, with Lannister men inside. Gendry's jaw tightened. We'll take Storm's End back, but not with brute siege. Their walls withstand dragons. Davos grinned. Smuggler's path carved under postern leads inside. I once ran onions through when Robert was young. He traced map. Tide at full moon covers cave mouth. We land strike team. Open sea gate from within. Brienne volunteered point. Tormund demanded a company for fun. Davos shook head. Corridor narrow, giants risk jam, but he could guide. They chose 8. Brienne, Tormund, Bessa the apprentice eager to prove. 2 seasoned spearmen, Davos, Gendry, and Robar Royce, donned in dark mail. Night of full moon, the waves whispered secrets as rowboats slipped toward cliff. Moonlight silvered foam, tide surged. They reached arch, half submerged. Davos led into darkness lit by hooded lantern. Water waist deep sucked boots. The tunnel climbed, twists smelling brine and damp moss. Bats fluttered overhead. They emerged into Seagate Tunnel, inside outer curtain. Guards dozed near brazier. Brienne felled first with pommel. Royce took second. They hauled chains, raised portcullis jerkily, at signal galleys rowed in silence. Meanwhile, Gendry, Bessa, Tormund swept corridors. Hallway echoed alarm when Lannister sentry found bodies. Horn blew, dot-eyed. Fight erupted. Red cloaks clash against stormmen freed from dungeon cells by Tormund's axe. Gendry barreled into Keep's heart. Great hall dust sheeted, banners of golden lion draped over stag. Cast off banners now. Sir Lannet, in gold plate, awaited with 30 men. He sneered. Bastard pretender. Father's shadow. He charged. Gendry met him mid-hall. Stormbringer roared white. Their clash thundered. Columns trembled. Sparks flew. Bessa darted, hamstrung a guard. Brienne carved path. Royce's mace shattered helms. Lannet pressed with longsword, edge Valyrian sharp. Plunder from Casterly vaults. Blade and Stormbringer rang pure note across crumbling hall. Lannet feinted high, struck low. Gendry leapt, parried, swung hammer cross. Plate dented. Lannet staggered but rallied. He hissed, "You weren't born for this." Gendry answered, "I was forged for it." He pivoted, smashed hammer into Valyrian blade, shattering it. Shards flew, one lodging in Bessa's shoulder. Lannet fell to knees, wide eyes. Gendry's backswing cracked helm, ending fight. Hall fell silent, save distant clash, where last red cloaks dropped weapons. Storm's End belonged to Storms again. Bessa winced. Gendry knelt. Extracted blade shard. Bound wound. You fought like 8. She grinned pale. Dawn spilled through arrow slits, catching dust motes dancing like sparks. Gendry climbed parapet. Beyond, Stormlander banners rose on hills. Horns echoed triumph. He planted Hammerflame's sigil over gate. Cheers rolled. Later in council chamber, once claimed by Renly, lords assembled. Estermont, Selmy of Harvest Hall, Swan Envoy, Karen's heir. They pledged swords. Gendry swore to defend their peasants first, collect no extra taxes, open forges. Bessa appointed Forge Master's apprentice. She choked tears. That eve at dusk, he walked ramparts alone. Stormbringer's ember gleamed faint at hip. Sea crashed, gulls cried, clouds purple. Footsteps. Brienne. She handed wineskin. To retaken home. She toasted. They drank. Wind tangled her hair. She leaned on stone. When I was child they mocked me monster. Today they cheered me hero. Feels odd. It feels right. Gendry said. World forges us in mirrors, others hold. Sometimes we smash them. He hesitated, glancing at her profile in dying light. I'm glad you were here. She met eyes. Wouldn't be anywhere else. Silence comfortable. Surf sang. Inside keep later, feast hall thrummed though scarce food. They dined on clam stew and hard bread. But joy sweetened. Minstrels plucked lutes. Tormund taught Stormlander's free-folk dance that involved stomping benches until legs cracked. Davos approached Gendry. Word from north. Jon pushed Gregor's scouts back across Trident. Olton pretender slain. Arya reached River Run. Edmure's banners ride east to hairy lions. Our anvil ready. Nigsta Porsi Vile. Gendry exhaled. Then we raise hammer. He turned to assembly, voice rising above din. Listen, lords of the storm. We push tomorrow to Blackwater Rush. We fly not for thrones, but to break chains of hunger and fear. I ask not just oaths, but hearts. Murmurs of assent. He lifted goblet. For dawn. They roared, pounding tables. Next sunrise. Storm's End yard buzzed with mustering. 2,000 Stormlander infantry. Knights polishing battered helms. Fisherfolk archers stringing composite bows from yew of Rainwood. Estermont galleys loading barrels of grey crab oil to ignite river barricades. Gendry oversaw anchor chain rigged to floating boom, trap of thunder, to ensnare Ironborn if they sailed upstream again. He trained pikemen personally, correcting stance. Bessa and older smiths hammered spearheads through day. Scouts returned midday with dire news. Euron's main fleet anchored off Dragonstone, brewing new scheme. Cersei mobilized Qyburn's alchemists for wildfire barges. King's Landing rumored to prepare for siege. Gates barred, food stores hoarded. Gendry convened war council in Renly's Solar. Davos, Brienne, Swan, Karen, Estermont. Tormund, Royce, Maester. Map unfurled. They plotted triple advance. Karen's horse through Kingswood striking supply lines. Swan's archers harass roads to Duskendale. Main force led by Gendry marched the King's Road, drawing Lannister host out. Brienne objected. If they refuse fight and hide behind walls, then wildfire stock rots their own, Gendry said. But we carry plan B. He glanced at Davos. The smuggler grinned. A tunnel again, but beneath Blackwater. Brienne shook head. Does every keep have smuggler's secret? Only those worth sacking, Davos winked. Days turned to March. Armies tramped muddy lanes, rainfall mixing sweat with salt. Villagers peeked from thatch huts to see hammer banners marching. Some pressed loaves into soldier hands, others offered silent prayers. Gendry ordered coin or craft given in return. Repairs to plows, sealing of roofs. Small axe forging report. Mid-March ravens delivered Arya's cipher. Riverlords burned Lion's siege engines near Harrenhal. Gregor forced to withdraw. Cersei recalled him to capital, furious. Jon's hosts crossing twins, linking with Vale Knights, planning converge at Rhaenyshill Tower. War would soon pivot to capital's walls. At dusk campfires dotted meadow near Hayford. Gendry wandered perimeter, thinking. Torment sat by pit with Bessa, teaching her freefolk chant. Laughter drifted. Beyond, Brienne sparred 2 squires instructing footwork. She caught Gendry watching, flashed grin. He returned. Later, they met outside command tent stringing his new surcoat. She pinned, clasp. Moon silvered her freckles. She asked, soft, "When victory comes, what then?" He considered. Fergie house is open. Grain flows. Maybe a smith puts away sword. Crafts plowshares again. And the king, her voice only wind. If realm needs him, he serves, but crown should rest on council, not head toino. He brushed stray strand from her forehead. Maybe he'll seek quiet company of someone who still sees the smith beneath gold. Brienne's eyes shone. He'd be fool to ignore such someone. He smiled, warmth flooding chest despite chill. They parted shyly. War horns sounded 3 days later at dawn near Brindlewood. Lannister vanguard sighted. 30 banners glowed red beneath gray sky, dust plume rising. Gendry's army arrayed shield walls along ridge, archers behind earthworks. Mist clung valley, muffling hooves. Gendry rode front line, hammer raised. Lannister commander Sir Kenric Hawthorne rode forth under parley, flak. Deck. He jeered Gendry as crown thief, and demanded surrender before wildfire cleansed them. Gendry answered by laying Stormbringer across saddle, its white flame igniting mist. Hawthorne blanched, spurred back. Armies advanced. Battle of Brindlewood erupted midday. Thunder of hooves, arrow storms, pikes locked. Swan archers rained death from flanks. Cairn cavalry circled, feigned retreat, drawing Lannister knights into boggy ground where they floundered. Footmen closed, spears thrusting up. Gendry fought at center, Stormbringer cutting bright path. Brienne at his side, shielded with iron discipline. Bessa, armored light, darted between ranks, ferrying water, hauling wounded. Once she plunged dagger into knight's visor to save comrade. By sundown, red banners lay trampled. Survivors fled. Capture wagons yielded barrels of wildfire and letters detailing Qyburn's distribution network across flea-bottom granaries. Unwitting bombs near city poor. Gendry read them intent. Face ash. She'll kill her own to kill hope. Brienne's jaw clenched. Then we end her before fuse lights. They dispatched ravens to John. Wildfire caches, location. Then marched, pace relentless. Stormbirds soared overhead as omen. In King's Landing Cersei paced tower balcony, wine trembling. Reports of Smith King's victories stacked. Qyburn assured her scorpions positioned along walls. Wildfire stores ready. But rumor of Stormbringer's white flame unsettled her. She dreamed burned children banging throne steps. Euron returned scornful, eye patch torn. Your red hammer king fights like Kraken Slayer, he drawled. But we still have air. He referenced rumored pact with Cellsail mages to lure last living dragon across narrow sea. Cersei gripped goblet. Nonani. Meanwhile, in Essos, Daenerys flew Drogon above Dothraki Sea, hearing whispers carried by merchants. Night King dead. Smith King risen. Dragons used by dead. Conflict tugged heart. Prophecy of fiery dawn overshadowed by memory of children aflame in marine battle. She set course west. The stage now bristled. North with wolf banners at Trident. Stormhammer host approaching Blackwater. Vale's eagles perched near antlers. Riverlords harassing supply. Ironborn fractured. Targaryen sails yet unseen. All eyes turned to capital. Gendry's army reached Storm's road spur. Blackwater gleamed under shy sun, flecked with merchant barges fleeing city. Across water walls rose dark, scorpion silhouettes like spider legs. Smoke from forges coiled behind, smell of rot and fear thick. Bells silent. Davos studied river eddies. Tide low tonight, perfect for chain. They anchored Trap of Thunder across inlet, under cover of dusk fog. Ghost's distant howl heralded Joan's arrival at river's northern ford. Army of wolves, Vale lances, and Tully standards assembled by torchlight. Kings reunited mid-ford, clasping arms. They convened war council in low tent, lit by pale lanterns. Sansa arrived disguised as soldier, her eyes bright with determination. Arya slipped from canvas shadow, rapport crisp dotting. Together, they plotted final siege. Night deep. Gendry left tent for bank overlooking water. Moon mirrored ripples. He pressed palm brand, felt heartbeat of sword through scabbard. Steps crunched. Sansa ta. Couldn't sleep, she said, joining him. I used to dream of Red Keep gardens, lemon trees. Now I can't smell lemons without tasting smoke. He watched her profile. We fight so children can smell them again. She nodded. I used to think throne would solve suffering. Now I see it's just chair and drafty hall. What matters is who helps rebuild houses when stone falls. I plan to melt throne down if we win, Gendry said quietly. Sansa's eyebrow quirked. Bold. Iron won't like that. It will if forged into plowshares. Then peasants harvest more than cinders. She smiled wistful. I hope Realm listens. They'll listen to you, he said. You speak with wisdom steel. They shared silence filled with lapping waves and distant city cries. Somewhere in that hush, trust took root. At dawn horns blared, siege began. Jon attacked Northern Gate. Vale catapults launched stones at battlements. Stormhammer troops advanced from east, raising mantlets. Cersei scorpions unleashed bolts. Many crashed among lances, but Arya's infiltrators sabotaged some mechanisms overnight. Others misfired. Inside city, wildfire panic. Qyburn servants attempted move barrels to wall, but small folk rioted, remembering wildfire of past. Fires broke spontaneously in Pisswater Bend. Gendry led unit to Mudgate where Davos once saved fleet. Under crossbow fire, they rolled battering rams shaped like stag. Stormbringer glowed, deflecting quarrels off aura shimmering. Ram thundered. Gate hinges screeched. Finally it burst. Troops flooded. City defenders crumbled. Many threw down arms to escaping small folk. In Red Keep, Cersei prepared flight to Maegor's hold fast. Mountain Gregor clanked behind. Silent. Suddenly wildfire explosion rocked city. Tower collapsed. She staggered, grasped balcony rail. Across courtyard she saw white flamed blade cutting through ranks. Smith King inside walls. Panic surged. She fled corridors toward hidden stairs leading to dungeons, but passage blocked by rubbled ceiling. Mountain heaved, stone aside, dust rose. From Gloomstep, Arya emerged. Face stern, cat silent. In hand, dagger of Valyrian steel, once meant for Bran. Behind her, Sansa advanced with guard. Cersei laughed brittle. Little birds turned hawks. Come, peck lioness. Arya darted. Slash. Mountain intercepted, blade clanging on dark armor. He swung massive sword. Arya rolled aside. Gendry and Brienne entered behind. Drawn by commotion, Gendry's stomach clenched, seeing Arya near Gregor. Brienne engaged Mountain. Steel rang. She remembered oath she broke to kill him once. Now chance. Gendry faced Cersei, who backed toward window, eyes wild. You wear crown you did not earn, she spat. You'll lose realm to dragons soon. Only wildfire remains to cleanse filth. No more children burn, he said, voice iron. Drop dagger. She drew small blade, lunged desperate. He parried with hammer handle, disarming. She stumbled. Sansa stepped between, facing her former tormentor. This time, Sansa said cool. You answer for wolves you devoured. Guards seized Cersei's arms. Meanwhile, Mountain pressed Brienne backward. Arya leapt, dagger buried into visor's slit. Mountain reeled but still fought. Gendry threw hammer. A blur. That struck Helmside. Crack, dot. Gregor fell to knees. Brienne decapitated with precise stroke. Icor smoked as monstrous body sagged. Silence heavy. Cersei shrieked, seeing champion fall. She attempted bite guard. Arya pressed blade to throat. Enough, Sansa commanded. They bound Queen in iron, escorted to Great Hall, now swarming with Northern and Stormlander troops, raising banners of hammer and wolf. That evening, Under shattered throne room roof where sunlight streamed, Gendry stood before Iron Throne. Massive, jagged, burned bodies lay in alcoves. He lifted Stormbringer. Its white flame engulfed Throne's ugly metal. Iron shrieked. Rivulets of molten steel flowed down steps like liquid dusk. Soldiers watched in awe as relic of conquest melted into glowing pool. Eventually only stump remained, a flat anvil-shaped pedestal cooling dark. He turned to assembled. Jon, Sansa, Arya, Brienne, Davos, Samwell newly arrived, with Old Town scholars, Jon Royce, Edmure, Tormund, lords of realm. Gendry spoke. No man or woman hence rule by spike of iron. We forge council of realms equal. Guided by memory of night we face together. He looked to Bran, wheeled forward, ravens overhead. Memory itself shall counsel us. Lords murmured. Then Jon stepped, placed hand on Gendry's shoulder. I refuse crown, I have carried death enough. Let the realm be led by counsel. Sansa raised voice. North chose independence once, but blood of realm now flows in one vessel. I accept seat as warden of North within council. One by one, lords assented. Dorne delegate, Glover, Royce, Martell, Nice. They formed Dawn Council. 7 members representing each region, including Riverlands and Iron Islands. Yara freed from Euron. Gendry appointed first Forgemaster of Realm. Steward of Infrastructure and Defense. Seat at Storm's End, not king but High Steward. Bran named Arch Chronicler, Memory Guide. Sansa Lady of Winterfell, Warden Dot. Davos Master of Ships. Samwell Grandmaster. Brienne sworn Knight Captain of Dawnguard. A new order defending each kingdom equally. Cersei stood trial. Council judged her crimes. Wildfire massacre conspiracies. She faced cell rather than flames. Mercy overcame vengeance, though many protested. Yet Realm would walk forward, not repeat ashes. Weeks passed. Wildfire barrels cleared, thrown to sea. Small folk fed from arbor grain. For houses opened doors. Bessa oversaw a new king's landing foundry forging plow blades from melted throne steel. Named Harvest Blades. Gendry traveled across kingdoms, teaching forging to apprentices. Children of farmers, orphans of war. Even former Lannister squire who loved tinkering. At each village he left them small hammer, stamped with flame, to remind craft is hope. Jon returned north, ghost at side. But visited often, advising counsel. Arya sailed west beyond maps, seeking new stories. Brienne commanded white-cloaked Dawnguard, training men and women both. Nights they walked battlements of Storm's End, she and Gendry sharing long talks. Laughter, sometimes silence comfortable as forges glow. One spring eve, cherry blossoms drifted across courtyard where they sparred. Gendry set wooden sword down, breathless. Brienne wiped brow. He reached, drew small ring wrought from throne steel shaped into interlocking stag and rose. Steel for strength, rose for grace, he said. Will you share forge of life with me? Brienne's eyes misted. She nodded. He slid ring. It fit snug like pommel, into hilt. They kissed under blossoms swirling like sparks ascending chimney. Months later, bells pealed, not war, but harvest festival. Fields outside King's Landing green again. Children played with wooden dragons painted bright. Stormbringer hung in new hall above dais modest, flame dim but present. A reminder not of tyranny but of unity wrought in flame and ice. At dusk, Bran recorded in white parchment. Thus ends Age of Iron Thrones, begins Age of Forged Dawn. Ravens carried copies to corners of world. In Essos, Daenerys, arriving to see city healed, wept with relief seeing no throne. Only people building. She met council, offered dragon's fire to rebuild granaries burned. Drogon roared overhead, but children laughed rather than screamed. In Winterfell, burst white raven flew. Winter's height passed, spring followed. Snow melted from Godswood, revealing crocuses pushing through. Gendry walked beach below Storm's End, surf gentle. He opened Melisandre's pouch, scattered ashes of first forging into tide. Sea fizzed crimson moment then stilled. He whispered, thanks to shadow that once guided flame. Behind him Brienne approached with 2 mugs of honey ale. They sat on driftwood, ankles splashed by tide. Stars glimmered, constellations unblinking. He pointed to red star, one sign of war now dulled. See? Even heavens forge anew. She leaned against him, warm. Dawn's forge never sleeps. He smiled, heartbeat matching surf. Beyond horizon, ships carried grain, scrolls, laughter. Blacksmiths hammered under skylights, each strike echoing vow. Children told story of smith who became king, yet chose hammer over crown, forging peace. And so in quiet heat of countless forges across 7 kingdoms, sparks danced, bright as hopes reborn, lighting path for ages yet to walk. And Stormbringer, resting above hearth in Storm's End's great hall, glowed gently whenever metal met anvil anywhere in realm, as if reminding all that true power lay not in throne of blades, but in hands, willing to shape a better world from the fires of its past.